Can't really read too much into the Gospels without coming across the fact that in the first century, most people found Jesus irresistible. There was something about the conviction with which he taught, the confidence that he had, that it was so fresh, it was so different than the way that the other religious leaders taught. The crowds would join around him, and people would actually turn over their lives and give things up just to be a follower of his. In the first century, it's undeniable that people found Jesus irresistible. But there were a few. There were a few that found Jesus to be intolerable. And it wasn't just his popularity, although that would ultimately be the thing that made them act. But it was his teaching. He wasn't just teaching a new version of the old thing. Rather, he was teaching a message that brought the old thing to a close and started a new thing. And some of them understood the consequences of that. That was intolerable. Because you see, they benefited the few from the way things were. They got rich because of the way things were. The system of 613 laws, the sacrificial system at the temple, they didn't want things to change. And here comes this guy, Jesus. And he's teaching with a conviction and a confidence and drawing crowds. And at first it wasn't all that threatening. But then his popularity was too much. And they decided to act. Because in the first century, most people found Jesus to be irresistible. I want to take you to Luke chapter 5. If you're new to the Bible, here's what you need to know. The Bible is divided up into two main sections. You have the Old Testament, and then you have the New Testament. The Old Testament is the story of ancient Israel. That's where you find Moses and the Ten Commandments, Noah, the Ark, Jonah, the whale, all those great stories. And then you have the 27 books of the New Testament. A better way to think about it is 27 ancient documents written by maybe 8 or perhaps even 9 different authors. And these texts, these documents, these letters, these pieces of correspondence, they survived over 300 years of history. And then they are finally brought together into what we encounter called the New Testament. Up here, the red represent the 4 Gospels, the account of the life of Jesus. The blue is the book of Acts. The yellow are the letters by the Apostle Paul. You get some letters from Peter and everyone else. And most of you know, purple is what? Revelation, right? We talked about that in the fall. So I'm going to take you to Luke chapter 5. And Jesus at this point, he already has made quite a name for himself. He's done some public healings. He's already had a few encounters. There's already been an attempt on his life. And he's teaching by the seashore, the Sea of Galilee. And a crowd is forming around him. And as he's teaching, his friend, this guy named Simon, they eventually would nickname Peter, which means the Rock. Sorry, Dwayne Johnson, this is the original The Rock. Right? Peter's over there, he's tending his nets because he's been out fishing all night. In the first century on the Sea of Galilee, you fish at night because that's when the water cools and the fish come towards the top. And you have the best chance to catch fish. But Peter didn't really catch anything. Neither did Andrew, his brother, or his friends James and John. So they're cleaning their nets, and they're ready to go home, have some breakfast, and get some rest. And Jesus is there teaching. The crowd's pushing in on him. So he gets into Simon Peter's boat. And he finishes his teaching, and he says to Peter, why don't you take your boat back out? Why don't you take those nets that you just spent an hour cleaning and drop them back down into the deep water? Peter protests, because you don't fish in the morning. And he already tried. But Jesus is irresistible for Peter, so he chooses to go back out, and he drops his net, and he catches some fish. Not just a few, but so many that the nets begin to break, and he calls on James and John, his friends, to help him, and they bring the fish in. And then he goes up to Jesus, and he falls on his knees, and he says this, go away from me, Lord. I'm a sinful man. Have you ever been around somebody that's better than you? Somebody that's more intelligent, that has achieved more in their lives, is more generous, is kinder, that just has a way with people. Have you ever been around somebody like that? I mean, I know I have. But when I've been around those kind of people, they never point the finger at you, but something about them heightens the fact that you got some growing to do. Heightens the fact that there's some things that you should change in your life. Just something about being around that person is so convicting, so compelling. And that's what's happening here with Peter.
Because this is not the first incident with Peter and Jesus. They were already friends. Jesus has already been to his house. But this was the final thing. This was the last thing that Peter needed to finally make that change and say, you are something else, Jesus. I need you to go away from me. This is a little too much. Jesus replies, don't be afraid, for now you will fish for people. Which is a pun. Jesus is using humor here. Oftentimes, we don't see the humor in Jesus' ministry because we're always taught about it in such a serious environment. But Jesus uses sarcasm and humor all the time, and he uses a pun. Peter's a fisherman. Now you'll fish for people. You all get it? Come on now. It's kind of funny. It's like a dad joke, even though Jesus wasn't a dad. You will fish for people. It's being a little bit funny, but the implications here are downright serious. You see, Peter would have been like any Jewish boy in the first century. He would have wanted to be a rabbi. You see, there wasn't the NBA, there was no Major League Baseball, there was no Hollywood. Young people didn't want to be superstars or athletes. They wanted to be rabbis. Those were the superstars, if you believe it, of that day and age. And every little boy would have studied Torah. And they would have hoped that they had done well enough and they would be identified by a rabbi who would come through and call them to follow. But Peter's all grown up now, and that ship has sailed. And so his life is going to be about fishing and raising his family and to be quiet and small. There's nothing wrong with that. But Peter had on his heart the same thing as probably on your heart. There's got to be more. My life is about something bigger. My life is to have meaning. And Jesus calls me to this life. It's going to be about reaching people rather than catching fish. You know what he does? They pull up their boats on the shore and they left everything and followed him. Everything. The family business, their surroundings to follow this itinerant, this traveling rabbi. Why would they do that? Well, in the first century, people found Jesus to be irresistible. Not just Peter, Andrew came along as well, that was his brother. James and John, his business partners, they joined. Ultimately, there's 12 individuals that end up following Jesus, plus more. There's a larger number than that. In fact, there's several women later in the Gospel of Luke. Luke tells us about these women, and they actually are bankrolling the ministry. Did you know that? It was the women that were paying for Jesus to eat and to get around. He names 3 of them in Luke chapter 8. Go ahead, next slide. Mary, called Magdalene, from whom 7 demons came out. Joanna, the wife of Chusa, the manager of Herod's household, and Susanna, and many others. These are the women who are bankrolling Jesus' ministry. Let's talk about Joanna for a minute. She's the wife of Chusa. Chusa is the manager of Herod's household. Herod is the ruler of Galilee, the region of Galilee, and another region as well. He's wealthy. He's powerful. He's often referred to as King Herod, not really the king, but they call him that. And he's not a nice guy. In fact, he is the same King Herod that arrests John the Baptist and beheads John the Baptist. And so here we have Chusa. He's the manager of Herod's household. It's not like the chief butler, rather it's more like a COO, chief operations officer. This is somebody that's powerful, that's important, that has a lot of status and access to a ton of wealth. How is it that Joanna is able to follow Jesus? One option, I mean, we really don't know, but one option is maybe like she just left Chusa, right? Like she abandoned him, divorced him, whatever, and maybe she stole like the family silver or something like that to finance things. Or maybe she was like lying to Chusa. She's like, I'm just having like a long girl's getaway, and I'm just going to be back in just a bit, and she secretly takes, I need a little extra cash. It's going to go really well. Well, perhaps Chusa knows. Perhaps he's supporting her and encouraging her to follow Jesus. Perhaps Chusa has heard some of the teachings of Jesus. Perhaps he's had an encounter that has changed his heart as well. And so secretly, he's funneling money to Joanna, who's bankrolled the ministry of Jesus. Now, that would put Chusa at great risk, wouldn't it? This is Herod, the guy that beheads people, Herod. Why would Chusa risk this? Again, first century, people found Jesus irresistible. I'll tell you about one more. Luke chapter 19. We meet this guy Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus is a tax collector, And a tax collector back in the first century is hated by everybody. Because a tax collector is a traitor to collaborating with the Roman Empire, which was an occupying force. You're like having the Canadians here ruling over us, and then one of you decides to collect taxes for the Canadians. Sorry for you. And this guy is the chief of all tax collectors, and he's really, really wealthy, we're told. Now, how do you get wealthy as a tax collector? Here's what you do. You collect the Roman tax, and then you add extra tax on top of it. So you basically take advantage of your own people. This is Zacchaeus. Now, we're told something about Zacchaeus' physicality. We're told he's really short. And I was in New Orleans last week on a bachelor party weekend. It was amazing. I can't believe I still get to do that sort of thing. Now there's this parade coming through, and there's a crowd of people. And I looked over and I watched this grown man climb a sign, right? He climbed up this pole so that he can stand on top of this trash can, this teetering with garbage, so that he can see the parade, right? Which was not remarkable at all in New Orleans, because by the looks of him, this guy had a few adult beverages in him, and this sort of thing happens. But here we have Zacchaeus, and there's this crowd forming, and Jesus is coming through, and look what he does. So he, Zacchaeus, ran ahead, climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. And we talk to the men that are here this morning. When's the last time you climbed a tree? It's the last time you climbed a tree for anything. And here's Zacchaeus, wealthy. We don't know how old he is, but he's a wealthy man. He's climbing this tree. Jesus sees him up in the tree. And he says, Zacchaeus, come on down. I'm going to dine at your house tonight. Which would be like if the Indianapolis Colts were to win the Super Bowl next year, right, Ray? Be an awesome thing. Yeah. Win the Super Bowl next year. We're all there celebrating at the parade. And then Andrew Luck walks by and says, Ray, I'm dining at your house tonight. Unbelievable. And then Zacchaeus, he said something really remarkable. Look, Lord, here and now, I give half of my possessions to the poor. And if I've cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount. Here and now, as in here and now. As in he has half of his possessions with him. Think about that for a minute. If you're to give half of your possessions, here and now, you probably first have to do what? Go to the bank, go home, do some online banking to liquidate some investments. So here's Zacchaeus, here and now, he's ready to give half his possessions to the poor, which means that Zacchaeus had heard something about Jesus, had heard some of his teachings. Something had happened because he is prepared, here and now, to give half of his possessions. Why would he do all that preparation? Well, in the first century, people found Jesus irresistible. But some of them found him intolerant. And this was the few that benefited from the system as it was. There were 613 laws. You had to come to a temple, and there was a certain kind of money that you had to pay the temple tax with, and so you had to exchange your money for this certain kind of currency, and you would lose money in that transaction because it was all Iraqi. Then you had to buy an animal, and the cost would be inflated. And there's all this big system so that you could be right with God. And Jesus comes along and he starts talking about the grace of God. It's here now and it's free and available to you. And those that benefited from the system of sacrifice and all the rule keeping, they found this Jesus intolerable. It was okay when he was up in Galilee and had small crowds, but now he's on his way down to Jerusalem, and bigger and bigger and bigger crowds are following him. So they decide to crucify him. And they say it's for the benefit of the people. But they're the ones that are really reaping all the rewards. And when they killed Jesus, every single one of them, the followers of Jesus, abandoned the movement. You read the accounts, and there's not a single notion that anybody was outside the tomb going 10, 9, 8, 7, right? Because Jesus predicted his resurrection. It's not like they didn't know. He had taught on it on several occasions. but not a single one of them was dead. They all thought it was dead and gone. And Luke, who writes the Gospel of Luke, but also the book of Acts, he tells us about two other movements that went away when their leader was killed. So I mean, we shouldn't be surprised. Here's what Luke says, Acts chapter 5, go to the next screen. It says, sometime ago Theus appeared, claiming to be somebody, and about 400 men rallied to him. He was killed. All of his followers were dispersed. And it came to nothing. After him, Judas the Galilean appeared in the days of the census and led a band of people in revolt. He too was killed, and his followers were scattered. And when Jesus was crucified, the movement ended. It was all, not a single one was waiting for his resurrection. But then, less than 50 days later, they were back. They were back in Jerusalem, which is where the people that arrested Jesus and ultimately had him crucified, that's where they lived. And this group of Jesus followers, they all want the movement, because that's what happens if you witness your leader up on a cross. It's brutal. It's disturbing. It will make almost all of us, perhaps every single one of us, turn away to witness it. 50 days later, they're back in Jerusalem. Not a small group. We're told in Acts chapter 1, 120, about 120 of them are back in Jerusalem in public. And then this happens. When the day of Pentecost came, they were all together, 120 in one place. Now, Pentecost also is another name for the Festival of Weeks. It's one of the three major festivals a year that Jewish people from all over the Roman Empire would descend upon Jerusalem. Because 500 years before that, the Babylonians came in and they carried them off into exile. So you had Jews living all over the place, speaking all different languages, but they come together on these big feasts. So on the day of Pentecost, they're all together in one place. Suddenly, a sound of the blowing of a violent wind came from heaven and filled the whole house where they were sitting. Now, whole house is misleading. I looked into this because if you follow the narrative, it's confusing. And the understanding here is that whole house refers to house of the Lord, meaning the temple. So in your minds, instead of thinking that they're like in some rented apartment space that they rented for the weekend for the festival, Jerusalem, rather, they're out in public in the temple. 120 in the very place where the people that arrested Jesus crucified him. All of them were filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak in other languages, other tongues, as the Spirit gave. And this causes a crowd of people, because there's all these Jews from different parts of the Roman Empire that speak different languages, and they see this group of people, 120 of them, and they're all speaking in the various languages of the people. One person jokes that this group of 120, they must be drunk. Peter says, we're not drunk, it's only 9 a.m. And then he gets up and he addresses the crowd, and he says this, fellow Israelites, listen to this. Jesus of Nazareth, I've been confused with any of the rest, that Jesus of Nazareth, was a man accredited by God to you by miracles, wonders, and signs, which God did among you through him, as you yourselves know. But some of you saw us. This man is handed over to you by God's deliberate plan and foreknowledge, and you, with the help of wicked men, put him to death by nailing him to the cross. There's this scene recorded in the Gospels where Pilate, who's the Roman ruler in Jerusalem, he brings up this man named Barabbas, and he brings up Jesus, and he gives the crowd of Jews a choice between who would be crucified. Barabbas is a violent revolutionary, and he is guilty of his crimes. And then Jesus is over here, never harmed anybody. And the crowds yell, crucify him, crucify him, crucify him, referring to Jesus. They've been stoked up by the religious authorities, the few who found Jesus intolerable. And here Peter is, in that very temple, that very space, saying to you, with the help of wicked men, put him to death by nailing him to the cross. And then he says, but God raised him from the dead, freeing him from the agony of death, because it was impossible for death to keep its hold on him. And then he quotes from Psalm 16, and he makes an argument from the writings of King David, tying David and the promises of David to Jesus, which would have been very, very compelling to his audience. But for all of us, we're not steeped in that. And so I love that part. You can go back and read it. Acts chapter 2. When the people heard this, they were cut to the heart and said to Peter and the other apostles, "Brothers, what shall we do?" They replied, "Repent and be baptized, every one of you, in the name of Jesus Christ for the forgiveness of sins, and you will receive the Holy Spirit." Those that accepted his message were baptized. About 3,000 were added to their number that day. In Jerusalem, 50 days after Jesus was arrested and publicly crucified, brutal, disturbing way to kill somebody, a movement killed. Now here they are, preaching this message. People are dying. What's the message? It's simply this: you killed him. God raised him. Say you're sorry. That's the message, basically, in a nutshell. You killed him, God raised him, say you're sorry, and they had the courage and the boldness to come out in the public and preach this message, and people found it irresistible. 3,000 converted on that day. Despite a high level of danger, an increasing amount of people followed the way of Jesus. If you read the book of Acts, and we'll talk about some of this in the weeks to come, the danger continues to follow the Christian movement. A few chapters later, Stephen is stoned to death publicly, yet the movement continues to grow. But here in America, in the 21st century, despite a low level of danger, a decreasing amount of people are following the way of Jesus. There's a lot of research done by Barna and Pew on this. Here's one graph that I adopted from the Pew Research study. This is a religious affiliation by age. The gray, the light color, is those who have a religious affiliation. This Christian could be Muslim, whatever. The blue is those who are religiously unaffiliated. When they're given a survey, and they're asked, what is your religious affiliation? There's a category down at the bottom that says none, and they check none. And so they're called the nuns. The rise of the nuns. You look it up, there's a lot of stuff about this. And typically, younger people have less religious affiliation than older people. But the researchers, the social science, say that there is a trend here that is beyond those typical. That there is an increasing amount of younger people who rather follow nothing, be a nun, than have an association with any kind of religion at all. And for me, that's intensely personal. But you all met something. I got a little chat. I got two of my nieces right here. And I care about the next generation because I really believe that actually embedded in the gospel is a message that is the hope of the world. It's a message of grace that is needed for every single one of us because we all down deep have an insecurity about who we are and about what's going to happen to us after this life is over. And the good news is that Jesus comes to preach that the church should be about, that we're about, is that God looks on you and says, that's my beloved child. And that when your life is over, the doors of heaven are open to you, and God is saying, come on in, I have a place prepared for you. Which is amazing grace. And it's hard for us to believe because we've been taught and ingrained in us is that we have to earn our way in, but you can't earn your way in. There's nothing you can do to earn it. There's nothing you could do to have it taken away. The only thing you can do is surrender to this good news, to this amazing gift. And here's why God wants you to surrender. Because when you receive that gift, it changes you. It changes you. It puts gratitude in your heart. It changes you from being a person of scarcity to a person of abundance. Changes you from being a person who reacts to the stresses of life by getting overwhelmed and lashing out on people, to a person that can handle them with grace and gentleness and patience and stability. It makes you a different kind of person, a kind of person that can bring a little pocket of heaven here on earth. Because it's all about this kingdom of God coming here on earth. God wants that change in your heart. And we need it. Because I see people suffering all the time. I see people that take the stressors of life and they compound them by the way that they deal with it. And then they suffer more and more, and then that suffering spills out on the people around them. Have you ever had somebody suffering spill out on you? They got hurt, and they lash out on you. We need this. So for me, this is intensely personal. And I hope it is for you. In the first century, the way of Jesus was irresistible. In the 21st century in America, it's become very resistible. Something happened. Something changed. Something got corrupted in this movement. We're going to talk about that. That's what this sermon series that I'm launching today is all about. That's what the book that I'm inviting you all to participate in book study is all about. I think that understanding what happened is incredibly important. Next week. So, the application. First, I want you to ask, what do you find resistible? If you've encountered the Christian faith, maybe you've grown up in church or you've been in this, but what about all of this? It's resistible. Then ask somebody, what do they find resistible? And we're going to help you with this because if you come downstairs right after service and the next step to lunch, there's a piece of paper on every table and it's a guided conversation. And it's going to ask you these questions. So you can have a conversation with other people about this. Now, if you spend your time just getting to know some people at your table, that is okay. All right? We're totally good at that. But this conversation. A couple other things I'd like you to do. Commit to the book study. We have 20 copies out there. We bought them for $15 a piece, but we'll give them to you for free. The first 20 people, there's 2 times that we're going to meet on Thursdays and on Sundays. You can come to either one. And if you miss one, that's okay. We're people of first. We want you to read. When was the last time you read a book with the sole purpose of growing spiritually? When's the last time you read a book? Just give it to the sermon series. We put them online. If you miss one, it's up on YouTube. We're in podcast form. We work hard to make it available to you. We're going to be working our way through this issue of why has this thing that was once irresistible become so resistible, and how can we reverse it? Finally, I just want you to be curious. I want you to take it personally. Those of you that are followers of Christ, or those of you that are leaning into this, that think that there's something important, but be curious about why is it that this good news doesn't feel that way? Why is it that some people would rather just follow nothing and be part of the body of Christ? Let me pray. Lord, I pray for each person here, whether they might be on a life's journey, whether they are committed to your Son Jesus, and understand the good news of grace and surrender to that good news, or if they're here today with a ton of questions and doubts and skepticism, Lord, we're glad that those people are here. But God, I pray for each person that they would become curious about this irresistible Jesus. When people just walked through, and those that got close to it just changed everything. Help us to be curious about how that change can happen in our own lives and how we can be part of that change in this world. Because this world, Lord, is full of pain. It's got plenty of suffering. And so it needs your church, a church of hope and peace. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.